Masonic Lodge was built around 1970 instead of 1950.
Which,
They got the Masonic Lodge on Milton Avenue, it was built in 1950. I went into the lodge in 1974, and my dad, they moved, that's when they used to be across from the, what's now the hotel.
yeah,
And I think around 1980s when they moved, Dad built the new lodge.
okay.
So that's,
I didn't have any idea
yeah,
about that.
yeah, 'cause I went into the lodge, 74, and it was in the old lodge. That was upstairs.
Yeah, yeah, upstairs,
Both my parents are doing really
on the
good.
building
They are.
closest to the intersection there.
Yeah.
I don't know where my seat is.
Yeah, so I know that's
Hey,
about
guys.
30 years off.
Good.
Good, long time no see.
Okay.
How are you,
that's
sir?
good to
Hey,
know.
how are
Hello,
you?
Bob.
I think I was here this one the last time. I'm still here.
You're here.
Seems like I got a promotion.
That's always good when the name tag is.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ellie Taylor.
Hey,
I was
Ellie.
here a long time ago, and, well, not too long ago.
Hey,
So I
Ellie,
couldn't stand it, I missed it too much, so I came back.
good to see you.
Thank you.
Good, good.
Yeah.
In the right spot.
That one I know is wrong, so that's for sure.
Did you look over this yet?
Yeah, the lodge building is wrong. My dad built that lodge in 1980, about 1980. I went in the lodge in 74 to build the old building.
That, the information that's on there is from, I think, from GIS or Fulton County Tax.
Yeah, the tax records are always wrong.
Well, they're always wrong. They don't know what they're doing down there, never have.
At least not in the last 100 years.
No,
Lodge is in the water building.
yeah, it was the Waters building, yeah. 'Cause I went into the lodge in 74, and it was still upstairs.
Yeah, that's me.
And then Dad built the lodge, where it's at now, about 1980,
Yeah, I say it's all
somewhere right in that time.
right. I was gone in that time period, but.
Yeah.
Bonnie's supposed to be here, but.
So the list of 18 properties on the last page, are those,
Those are these properties, that's the list of everything that's on.
I'm sorry, but,
This
Yeah.
down here is all this, but we just put notes.
Just didn't have the detail.
okay, I see.
Michael's gonna go over it, y'all.
All right. This is the first time I've seen the Masonic Lodge on any of these lists.
This list, he'll tell you, but he
Well,
said.
it's not even close to historic.
Yeah.
The silo still in Alpharetta.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's about it.
They didn't get,
No, it's,
Milton didn't get that either.
no,
That's,
it's an island, sort of.
the state's gonna vote on that. And I got Chan, what's her name, I can't think of Jan, she was our representative up here.
Jan Jones.
No, I don't think it's John, Jan somebody, I can't think. Anyway, had a call her one Sunday and got her, and I said, look, I do not want to be in the city of Milton.
I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order because we have to, elect a new chair and vice chair.
I know a lot of people that I think I can get to vote against this issue. She pulled out.
I know Bonnie was
Bob.
coming.
Yeah, no, Bob,
Oh, wait a minute, I got a
But I
voicemail
don't
from
remember
Bonnie.
I didn't remember what happened over in Crab Apple. I know they carved out a piece for,
She's running a little bit late.
Portal there.
She couldn't get her car started, but she's gonna be here shortly.
Okay, go ahead. We have to go ahead and start the meeting because it was advertised to start at 3 o'clock.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. The first thing we have to do is have elections. And if you are happy with the people that are chair and vice chair now, you can re-elect them. So may I have a nomination for a chair, please?
Bonnie. If you ain't here, you get elected.
Do we have a second?
second, what did he say?
I said,
All
if you ain't
those,
here, you get elected.
all those in favor? Say aye.
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 I didn't get elected.
Okay. And then election for vice chair. Who is that? That's you, Bob, right? Were you the vice chair?
It's me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So do I have a
nominate-
nomination for that?
I'm nominated that.
All right.
Is
And
there
a
a mo-
second? All those in favor?
Go ahead.
I'll do it.
All right. And then Bonnie had asked, is this? No. Bonnie had asked that we start having the Pledge of Allegiance. So if we'd like to go ahead and do that, and then hope maybe she'll be here and I can turn the meeting over.
She has to have the program what?
She asked for us to do the Pledge of Allegiance
Oh,
at every
okay.
meeting.
I pledge
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Since she's not here, Shaq, can you go ahead and call for an approval of the minutes?
Sure.
Yeah.
I've read over the minutes and I'm good with them. Can I get a vote on approval of the minutes?
Approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Hi, Bob. And if you want to go on to the first item from board members.
So I guess, Michael, my understanding is that we have this partial list of the contributing and designated. This says dedicated, but I
This is-
get, that means is that a misprint or?
No, we have a contributing historic property list, and some of these properties are on there already.
Right.
And we have designated, these are just buildings, as Michael can talk to it, but speak to it.
Sure. I'm not sure what dedicated means.
Good afternoon. Hope everyone's off to a great new year. I don't know. There we go. So staff was provided with a handwritten list of properties. It's my understanding that there was a meeting possibly over at the log cabin with the Historical Society, some members of the Historical Society, not necessarily specific to the City of Alpharetta Historic Preservation Commission, but the Historical Society. And we were presented with that handwritten list, and we were asked to type up that list. And we were also asked to investigate each of those properties. And the intent here was to identify new properties that we could potentially add to the contributing historic properties list. And so we did, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Who provided the list?
We received the list from the chair, from Chair Bonnie Stedman.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she had told me that she had taken notes from an unofficial meeting that occurred amongst members of the Historical Society. I don't really have any more information other than that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we did have a meeting, and now I'm remembering that we did. We all kind of had a list going of interested properties, and this is Bonnie's list. I'm sure it's very similar to my list that I had as well.
Yeah. So we actually typed up the list at her request, and then we also investigated each of the properties that were on that list. And what we found is that this is the list, so everyone should have that as part of your packet, and then I think we have a hard copy in front of each of your at each of your chairs. And so we looked at each of the properties here. What we found is a lot of these properties are already on the contributing list. We also noted that several of the properties that were on here did not qualify for inclusion on the list yet because they hadn't achieved one of the criteria, which is that the structure is at least 75 years or older. And so we've noted that in the note section on the far right-hand column of this table. There were a few cemeteries also that were identified on here. And with our ordinance that applies to the Historic Preservation Commission, the intent of the properties that are put on those lists is to protect historic structures. So cemeteries are already covered by federal and state law, so there's protections for those. So we do not believe that it would be appropriate to place cemeteries on the city's contributing historic list. So I don't think that that's necessary in order to protect those. They have other protections already. I think there were only, if I remember correctly, there were 2 items on this list where we needed a little bit more information from you in order to further investigate those. And that was number 9, which is the Boys and Girls Academy. There wasn't an address or anything that was identified on that handwritten list. If you have some additional information for us with a particular address, we're happy to look at that, but we didn't have that information.
Are we ready to talk about them individually as you read them out?
Sure. I mean, well, there were 2 really that were unknowns, and that was number 9 and then number 14, which was, it just said M and then Guinness.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, if you have some other information for us to help us identify if there's a particular property associated with those, we would be happy to go back and look at those further.
I have a lot of information on the academy. And
Okay.
that building no longer exists.
Oh, it doesn't exist.
It's roughly where we are now.
Okay.
It was behind, the old courthouse sat on the corner, and then behind that was, the Boys and Girls Academy. It was, you've got the right date, 1872. And I have a advertisement for that when it first opened
Okay.
in 1872. So I'll get that to you.
Yeah, that would be neat to see that, but if there's not a building to protect,
Right.
then there wouldn't be a purpose to place
And
that on.
we have a photo of it.
Okay, all right.
Can
What
I-
about, I'm sorry?
Just one thing that reminds me of in the area that I was looking for the other day, and that is a step somewhere. There's a step. I was thinking to be on the list, there was an actual step to an old home that was close to the courthouse or behind us here.
Yes, there is one back here.
Right off of,
Yeah.
was it on State Bridge, or, I mean, not State Bridge,
Haynes
On
Bridge?
Brook Street, right off.
it's on Brook Street?
Used to be Brook Street.
Yeah, that's the step from the home that Councilman, or Mr. Shirley,
Yeah,
back in the
right.
30s.
Yeah, that was Phil Summerhour's grandfather or
Right.
something like that, and he was telling me about the step.
Right. And it's, he built a home on Brook Street, I think it was in the 50s, and they kept the steps intact when they tore the house down. And he was the state representative for Milton County who introduced the bill to have Milton County merged with Fulton, 1932. Carlos V. Shirley is his name.
Him and Louis Jones in the Senate,
Right.
and Louis Jones in the Senate. Mr. Louis Jones was in the Senate. He was
Yes,
a part of
yes.
that, those two together.
So do you know where that step is?
I've never seen it, but
I've seen it at some point, and I was looking for it the other day where I remember it being, and I could not find it, so I was just trying to find it.
If you're able to locate it, please let us know. I'll ask around as well. But if you're able to locate it, we're happy to look into it.
Exactly where it's at.
Okay. I'll
we
ask.
have a picture of Carlos Shirley.
And,
If,
okay,
we
and I
wanna
think
put that-
maybe Kim Manning might know where it is. I think
We can reach out to Kim as well. I'll make a note to check and see if Kim has any information about that.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
It was kind of off the subject there. Yeah, but yes,
All right.
I understand, Michael, that, if a building doesn't exist, there's nothing to protect.
Well, we do have an example at the
Cotton House.
the farmhouse settlement. That's just there's some ruins of, I think, a mill.
There's a
Mill,
dam, there's a
yeah.
dam,
Yeah.
half of a dam, and there was radar penetrating machine that identified posts where at least one of the buildings.
Yeah, so I do think this would be a similar situation if there's steps that are remaining. I think there is potential to designate or to put that on that contributing list in order to protect those.
That was Alpharetta before there was an Alpharetta, basically.
Yeah, and,
Okay.
and farmhouse is also a very different, it's a little unique in that it's already designated, but it's not on the contributing list.
So it just skipped over. So as part of what, basically it wasn't on the contributing list, but there were I think there was some kind of requirement, and maybe Ellie, I hate to put you on the spot. Do you recall how we
Well,
designated
it just
that?
started out as people wanting it to be on the list, and it wasn't on the list. And then there was Councilman Mitchell really wanted it to be designated. So there is an ordinance on November 20th, 2021. It was designated by ordinance because it is a park now. It is going to be a park, and it's going to be part of that historic park. So they wanted it designated, even though there isn't really a building there. So.
Yeah, it's not necessary that you have to go to contributing list before you get on the historic designation list. You don't have to go that way, but by placing a property on that contributing list, you ensure that at least it can't be demolished without council approval, and then it goes to the historic designation list in order to take advantage of incentives as well as to ensure protection in perpetuity.
So would it behoove us to, in terms of protecting it, would it behoove us or not behoove us to go ahead and add it to the contributing list as well?
I just don't think that it's necessary. There's no purpose in adding it to the contributing list because it's
Provide
already
any more.
on the designation list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another comment on that. Is everybody familiar, are you familiar with that farmhouse? It's, Billy Bates and Aubrey Morris discovered, I don't know, 90s maybe, that there was a post office at this location. And if you go east on Milton Parkway, a little ways past the 400 bridge on the north side of the road, there's a dam, half dam, the rest of it, I guess, was washed away. And there was a mill there built in probably 1830s, early 1840s. Started off as a grist mill, became a sawmill, and then a cotton gin. And there were some residences there. that has not been identified. But Bud
Thompson on the property in 1940.
Yeah. It's where his property was recently. And the post office was put in there in, I think, early 1850s. And when Alpharetta was established, they moved the post office from Farmhouse to Alpharetta. And, we don't have much history of it after that took place. Somewhere along the line, it was, I guess the business community moved to Alpharetta rather than some of those businesses being there. And Billy discovered that it was operating in the 1920s. The dam was repaired in 1913, and we know that because somebody wrote 1913 in the sand, in the mortar before it hardened. But that's probably more than you wanted to know. But
I believe in the museum, there is a presentation on it, if you're
Yeah.
interested in
Yeah.
more.
So is that, it's designated as a city park at this point?
It's designated as historic, and that property is going to be developed as a city park.
Okay,
Yes.
So the best we'll be able to do is put historic markers on it and maybe partially identify some sites. I mean, there's
Yes, so
nothing much
we-
to identify, I take, other than the dam.
So there's an adjacent property to that, and we actually, by zoning condition, got the developer, the property owner, to dedicate that property to the city. And I believe there are some conditions on that also that requires a historical marker be placed on the property. So it's my understanding that will be done in conjunction with Rec and Parks Department.
So that's, basically that takes care of this issue then.
That does take care of that particular property, yes.
Do you know the timing for the park?
You know what, I have not received a recent update. I'm not sure, I believe they're in design. Parks and Rec is designing that park over there. I did not get an update on the timing of that. I'll look to try to get you some information on that.
one more thing about that. The creek that the dam was built across is Teasley Creek.
Huh, okay.
And Teasley built everything there that was there.
And then I just noticed on number 14, I went back to the handwritten notes that we received, and it looks like number 14 was referring to the McGinnis Cemetery. So again, the cemeteries we believe are protected by state and federal laws. So I don't think that the cemeteries are necessary to place on our contributing or historic designation list. If there are other properties in the future that you've seen and you would like staff to look into, we're more than happy to do that. You don't have to wait until we have an actual Historic Preservation Commission meeting. You can send those to us by email, you can give us a call, and we'll be happy to look into those.
The date on the Masonic Lodge is off by about 30 years.
He thinks it was built in 1980 and not 1950.
Yeah, my dad built the Masonic Lodge, and I know, I went into the old lodge in 1974, and it was several years after that when they built the new lodge.
Gotcha. Maybe the reference so I believe that information that we have in this table is from Fulton County Tax Assessor information. That may be referring to the previous building?
It was in the Waters Building at that, before that.
Okay.
Upstairs.
All right, we'll update that on this table, so you're thinking that it was closer to 1980?
Closer to 1980.
Okay.
14 shows the Cotton House, and the Cotton House business followed the original business there, which is it was the Guano House. And it was built around 1900, and it's already on the list as the Webb Guano House, or Huanner, however people. So, and we have the right, it has a marker there. It actually-
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
We don't need that one on there, I guess. Aubrey Morris House, that's on Rucker Road.
That one we identified as being located in the city of Milton, so
Yeah,
we
I don't
we
have an
wouldn't look at
address,
that.
but
City
I-
of Milton.
Yeah.
I don't think so. You may be right, you probably are, but it's on Mid-Broadwell Road.
If you can give me an address, I can verify. I looked up, any information that I found about it was in Milton, Georgia, so
Okay.
I don't have an address.
I'll send it to you. In fact, it should be on the list, full list that you have, but I'll be glad to send that to you.
This might be a good time to stop for a minute and just let Bonnie know that she's been reelected as the president of the Historic Preservation.
I think this has a Trump sound to it. Don't show up and you get elected.
Yeah.
I apologize, my car wouldn't start and I had to get it jumped off, so
Well,
I
thank you
all
for
been there.
coming.
I sent
You sent me,
you
I told them.
a note. Okay, good. Thank you. I don't like being late.
It's all right.
But thank you for electing me, I appreciate it. Thank you all.
Bouncing around, Michael, farmhouse on the map is shown as 2 words. It's been used both ways, I know. Even the society's used it both ways, but it technically farmhouse, 2 words.
Okay.
The Brady Place house is already on the list, and we have full description of it.
Yep.
Packsmith House, also on the list with full description. The Weatherford House is gone,
No, the Weatherford House is there.
but well, I think that this is the other Weatherford House. It is, it was a wood frame house, almost up to where the old hotel was.
No, 193 is the two-headed calf house.
Yeah.
Okay, this shows, okay, 193. Okay, well, we shouldn't have that on the list then.
I think we do. It's on the.
That one's on
It
the
is on the
list.
list.
And we have, there's zoning conditions on that property that require that it be designated once the developer develops that property. So
And
it'll
that's-
move from the contributing to the historic
I would
designation.
ask-
That's what I thought,
Yep.
too. Now,
I would
that's-
ask that Shaq and Bonnie, if you would, I may have been out the day y'all met, but if you meet again like this, I need to be in it. Not being a smart aleck, but I should be in it.
When we talk about.
I don't think it was a Historic Preservation Commission meeting.
No, I know.
Okay.
Apparently it was Shaq and Bonnie,
I
right?
think it was
No,
a historical society board meeting.
the
Yeah.
Historic Society,
All right,
the Preservation Board.
yeah.
It was the whole, I thought it was the whole board, but
I would ask you, since I wrote up most of these originally,
Uh-huh.
just run it by me if you don't mind.
absolutely, yeah.
Maybe
we-
save us some time.
I
later
agree.
on.
I'm
Sure.
sorry you were
I know. You don't need to
eliminated
apologize.
there. It wasn't intentional.
I understand. I said Packsmith House, okay.
The ones that, on here that maybe have some questions, some more other questions about it, for example, I would think even, there's other criteria, I think, Michael, if you're done with your kind of presentation of the list, I understand now what dedicated means, I guess. I mean, some of these are interesting. I think the silos should be, even though it's not 75 years old, I think it should be on the contributing list. I think it's, has some,
But one of the criteria in our code that it has to meet is it has to be 75 years or
I
older.
thought that it could be either or, 75 or have some kind of,
I'll verify that. Let me see if I've brought
It
the
is
code.
also a city park, so there's no,
no need to
no,
protect it
no,
anyway.
it's not, I mean, you might, I think there's a marker there, but
Yes,
I'm
there
not
is.
sure, so
Yeah,
I
there's
don't
a
really.
museum, a little mini museum.
So I don't
there.
really think it needs to be added to the.
Okay.
But I
And
mean,
then,
that's up to you.
and then I guess the Manning Mercantile is so close to 75 years, and it certainly looks like, historically significant building, but,
That is,
Where is that?
Manning Mercantile Tile business, still exists. It's right next to the downtown Pocket Park. Just north of it, it's a two-story brick
Yeah.
building.
But it was
used to be a
significantly
golf,
remodeled
hair
a
shop,
few
shoe
years ago.
shop.
That's what
Was there a
barber shop.
wedding
Yes.
shop in there
It
one
is
time?
now a
Yeah.
second story.
Was there a wedding shop in there one time?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, so
It was-
it's not
yeah,
really
it was a
historic on the
one-story
inside
building.
anymore, so I don't.
Yeah, the second
It
story's
would,
been
so
added.
it won't, I don't know that it would meet being a historic building, so it would definitely have to be 75 years old.
It is 75. I don't know where the 1950 came from or whatever it is. It may be from the Fulton County taxes. Or, let's see, what date does it show there?
It says
Um,
1950.
1950. The building was, there was a wooden building there, and we have a photo of the Manning brothers in front of their store. That building burned, and the Alpharetta Free Press newspaper was located there, and it caused that newspaper to shut down for about 10 years. But the brick building was built around 1920. I could be off by a couple, 3 years, one way or the other. And then it was replaced by the brick building. But I don't know when the second floor was added, maybe 2005
Yeah,
or so,
something like that. So I
that.
think that takes it out because it's been significantly remodeled.
Yeah,
okay.
I would think.
I don't think it qualifies because of the remodeling, the adding of the second floor.
To qualify to be on that contributing list, what the code says is that the certain historic buildings that contribute to the city's historic, cultural, aesthetic, architectural, or other heritage and are at least 75 years old. So you've got to be one of those as well as at least 75 years old.
A Cook shoe shop was in there when I was.
Shoe
growing
shop
up.
was in there, and post office was in there for a while back in the 20s or 30s. I understand where you're going there. I don't know whether it should be included or not, but it was, the first floor was historic.
Farther up Highway 9 on the same side, when you get up to where Appen Media is, but across the street, there are several old wood houses that look like they're getting ready to be knocked down. In most cases, several of them. Do you know anything about those buildings?
I know something about one of them. My parents lived there for a short time. I don't know when it was built, but probably in the 40s. It's brick, and I can't tell you the address, but it's out past where Butch Elliott lived, about 4 or 5 houses.
Is
That's a
that,
good point.
is that still in the city of Alpharetta?
There are some wooden ones also, and they're in pretty bad shape, and whenever I go to Costco, I drive by them, and they look like they're getting ready to be knocked down.
I don't know really much about those. I don't know who could tell us, but somebody with the city maybe.
I'm not familiar with the area that you're speaking to, but if you're able to, if you happen to pass by and see an address, we're happy to look into those.
Yeah, I can do that.
Well, there's certainly nothing architecturally significant about them.
No, they're not historic looking. They look like little
Some of them are
one-story
brick ranches.
houses. Huh?
Some of them are brick ranches
Yeah.
along there.
Built just right after World War II.
I'm assuming they're gonna widen that part of the road. And, they've all,
Okay.
And I have that documentation somewhere along with a picture of the Bagwell family that was there, so
Did you say 1819?
1890,
Oh.
90. And so that would be Cora Bagwell. And I can't remember the husband's name, or Connie, do you know?
I don't know his name, and while you're on that, ask Bob this. Monk Haygood, she was a Bagwell. Was she raised in that house or the one next to it that, Diane,
Anderson.
Anderson, yeah.
Yeah, she's right next to Shaq's parents' house.
Just up Canton Street.
So he wasn't in the one that
I don't think so.
we talking about, the 194?
No, I had, Uncle Harold lived, he built a house there in the 50s. I think Diane Anderson there, and then Monk Haygood, or vice versa, between the two.
But Monk and Diane were both living in the same house, right? Was they half sisters?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I always heard her name was Bagwell, but her Monk's last name was Bagwell, and I associated her with Shaq's house. But anyway,
And regarding 184, it's my parents' desire to get a marker, so I would love to see that current application, contract, or whatever.
We can get with Parks and Rec. They're the ones that are handling the historical
Okay.
markers.
Yeah, I agree. That would be a
But does it
lovely
have to be
place.
designated to get a marker?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I could be wrong. But
no, that's a sticky question, because I think just about all of them we have now came about before this commission was formed. I personally think it deserves a marker.
Yeah, I do too.
Well, Ellie is correct in that if you designate the property as historic, that is one of the incentives that you get is the historic marker. But there's nothing that would prohibit it from getting a historic marker, even if it wasn't designated. We can certainly talk to Kim Manning about that in Parks and Rec.
Okay, and, I mean, there's plenty of examples of, like the Upshaw House is on the contributing list, but it's never been designated.
Yeah, and it
Sure.
has
it
a
has a
marker
marker,
in it.
doesn't it?
And it has a marker.
Yes.
The Upshot, you're talking about Teasley's house?
Yeah,
I think it's on the list.
it's not designated, though. It's on the contributing list, but it's not designated.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
we're just talking about whether it has to be designated to have a marker.
So am I correct, Shakins, where it says here, need date information? So if you provide information, written information showing it was built in 1890, then is that the only thing that we need to become a historic site?
I will.
It has to be, I'm sorry, I keep interrupting
sorry.
you, but to be designated, his parents would have to, the owners of the property would have to bring it forward that they would like to have it designated.
Yeah, and
We
that.
don't designate.
And that may be a future desire. We're definitely be thinking about that for the future, but they don't mind going ahead and putting a marker in front of it,
But that property is already on the contributing
Right,
list.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
But I will need to get, of course, if we have a marker, I gotta have some history on it. I gotta
Right.
know what the marker's gonna say, right? So,
Right.
Sure.
You know, Shaq, when you run into some of those, if you look at the markers that are already up, there's not much wording there. It's, the size of the marker itself sort of determines the amount of words and descriptions you can get on there. So if you wanna go ahead with it without all the early history, I think there's plenty.
enough info for a marker, huh?
Pardon?
Enough info for a marker. If we got Bagwell in 1890?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But that's just my opinion. Well, I'll bring that up. The Historical Society meeting too, I guess.
Now, who
If you have-
pays for that? Do you know?
City pays for 2 of them a year, and we pay for 2.
And then I think the owner needs to maintain them.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I don't think that's,
Oh, I thought you meant the
Decided on
house.
yet quite? or-
I don't think so. It's not in the ordinance, I know. But that's a good point.
They have to maintain the house, not the
Well,
sign.
Yeah, the marker.
Yeah,
I
we're
mean,
trying to, considering having them pay for have the marker, kept whole, and, the material they're made of, just really not that long lasting.
Off the subject, I mean, if we've exhausted this particular list, some properties, where might we stand on some of the restorations around town? For example, the Gardner House and the Lewis Manning House, and I've driven by these homes, and right now the Gardner House is like completely, gutted.
Yeah, so the last 2 certificate of appropriateness in order to rehab those houses was the Gardner House on Cumming Street, corner of Cumming and Cricket, and then the Earl Wood House. And so there's development associated with both of those properties. Conditions of zoning require that both of those historic properties be rehabbed prior to the first certificate of occupancy on the property. So they have to do that first before they do any of the other development. I have been in contact with both developers of both of those sites. Madewell Homes, Torrey Young has the property at Cricket and Cumming with the Gardner House. He's been working on, so he's adding an additional home behind the historic home. And so he's going through a process with the city right now to get that approved. But he is, it's my understanding that he's going to be getting started very soon on the rehab of the Gardner House. The other property on South Main Street with the Earl Wood House, the developer has decided to, so there's restoration or, rehab of the Earl Wood House, and then he was approved to add 16 townhomes to that property. He is actually bringing forward the townhomes when they brought them through to council. He showed 3-story townhomes. They would like to add a rooftop on those townhomes, which constitutes a 4-story, which is allowed within the zoning of the property, but he does have to bring that back to city council in order to get that approved. So he's submitted for that, and they're going through that process. I believe they're scheduled for a late February hearing on that one. Doesn't have anything to do with the Earl Wood House. It's just the townhomes that are being added to that property.
Now, I was also asking about, excuse me, the Lewis Manning House on Cumming Street.
So the Lewis Manning House, it was my understanding, they're working on the rehab of that property. They ran into some issues with the trees on the property. That huge post oak, I believe it is, that's just to the right of the historic home. They found that there was some disease in that tree, and I believe that tree is either come down or will be coming down soon. But they ran into some issues with the arborist on the trees on the property, and so that's why you haven't seen any movement. But the family that owns that property is moving forward with the rehab of that property. I can reach out to all those the people that are developing those properties to get you some more concrete information on when they're gonna
Do
get
we know
started.
what their plans are, what they're gonna turn it into?
The Lewis Manning House?
Yeah.
So it's a home. It was approved by this board about a year ago,
I thought
the
it was an
rehab.
office.
No, it's,
No, it was a
Katie.
family, the
Oh.
Katie family, they're a young family, purchased that property. It was
that's-
when the Taylor Morrison got the approval to develop the homes on that property. The original plan was to turn it into a commercial office. They ended up coming back after they realized that wasn't gonna work out. And then the Katie family ended up purchasing it, and they changed the conditions of zoning to allow them to
Okay.
reuse that structure for a home, a single-family
Do you
home.
know, is that still Randy with T Olive that's doing that?
It's my understanding that Randy with T. Olive is still involved in that project.
And Lou Oliver, didn't he do some
I
architecture?
believe he did the architecture on it, yes.
And one other one that I'm kind of wondering about the status of is the Weatherford House. I know it's up for sale again.
So that property went through the zoning. There are zoning conditions requiring that Weatherford House be designated as historic and rehab. They have to go through a certificate of appropriateness with this board at the time that before they rehab it. That property was approved, I believe, for a combination of, initially it was townhomes and detached. And then a developer brought it back through, and I think, if I remember correctly, it's been a while, I think they changed it to all townhomes. They submitted for a land disturbance permit, and then I believe that there was a falling out between the developer and the property owner. And so I have not heard any kind of update on if there's any desire for that property to be developed. But I can certainly reach out to the property owner to get an update. I just haven't spoken to them. It's been probably over a year since I've heard from them.
Okay.
Now, is it possible that the owner of that house and property could tear it down and build what he wants to on it?
They cannot. So the property
So how did
is-
it get to that status?
Because it's on our historic site list. They cannot demolish what's on our list.
Yeah.
Well, my understanding was that wasn't the case, that if a man owned a piece of property and had a historic building on it, and he wanted to tear it down, he could.
No, so it's on the city's contributing historic list. Any property on the contributing historic list, you have to, if you want to demolish that structure, you have to go to city council for approval. No one has come forward requesting to demolish the Weatherford house. And in fact, when they rezoned the property several years back and got the other development approved surrounding the Weatherford house, we got conditions of zoning requiring that they save that structure. So the only way to change those conditions of zoning is by the board or body that placed those conditions on the property, which is city council.
It's my understanding that it has to go before us, before it goes to city council. Isn't that true?
We're just an
It's
advisory
been a
body.
while since we've had an alteration a request to demolish a house. I think the only one that I recall us having was the Gardner house. There was a request on that property to demolish it, and it was denied by city council. I don't recall if the code requires it to come to HPC, Historic Preservation Commission, for a recommendation before it goes to city council. I can certainly look into that.
Somewhere I remember reading
It might
that.
be for an alteration, but not for I mean, the council can approve something.
Well, I know council makes the final decision on it. I just don't recall if it goes before historic preservation for a recommendation
curious
before it
to
goes to
find that out.
council. But council definitely does have the final say
Right.
on it.
One more, I hate to keep dragging us through some new stuff. What about that 50-foot strip next to the Weatherford house? Does the city have any, as far as you know, what are the plans for that little strip there? Other than the parallel parking in the previous Hudson Park plan?
So the Hudson Park plan, that developer had made a commitment to develop on-street parking on that strip of land. And so until those conditions still exist on that property, so even if a new developer were to take that over, they would develop that on-street parallel parking on that strip.
In front of the Weatherford house?
It's just south of the Weatherford house.
Oh, okay.
There's a strip of land along the east side of Canton Street,
Oh,
just
okay.
south of the Weatherford house.
Oh, okay.
And that strip of land is owned by the city. We had talked years ago about maybe doing like a linear park or something like that, and I think Parks and Rec explored it, but there wasn't sufficient space to do that. And so when the developer came in for Hudson Park, they had inquired about, what the city's desire was for that land, and ultimately they had made a commitment to the city that they would develop on-street parking, parallel parking in that strip of land to add parking to that area, because obviously we put the art center in at the old Fulton County Library site that's catty corner to that property. And so that it was determined that the on-street parking would be more beneficial to the city than trying to create a linear park in such a small space.
And so the future intent would be to just leave it completely untouched around that creek, other than the parallel parking. All that'll stay natural, and you won't do any manicure or...
I don't believe that any of that strip of land was within the buffers associated with that creek. I think that they were all outside of that. So it's city-owned land. When that developer brought it to our attention, if they could do something there, we of course brought the director of Parks and Rec in. And ultimately, as I said, it was just determined that the best use would be that on-street public parking.
And then the rest of it, just leave natural.
Yes.
I think it'd be a great park with the stream there.
I mean, I don't remember all the details. It's been several years since we've looked at that, but I can definitely assure you that we did get Parks and Rec, Morgan Rogers involved in that discussion. And I know that they looked at it for a linear park, but at the end of the day, they went with the on-street parking.
Okay.
I think it'll be interesting as the new buyer comes along in a new development, if they, assume the engineering of Hudson Park, and I know they were going to beautify that stream in their development.
Yes.
But then on the south end of Weatherford, that pocket area, that 50-foot buffer area there, it's always been very natural, and it's low, and there's a creek down there, so you take up whatever it is, 20 foot for a sidewalk, and then, whatever, I don't know there's a little bit of.
Is the buffer 50 or 75 feet?
I think it's about 50 feet.
I don't remember the width of it. I know it's fairly narrow. And, if any new developer came in and wanted to relook at that property and change the overall site plan and vision for that property, they would have to go through a public hearing process. Ultimately, Planning Commission and City Council would be looking at that. And of course, we'd start from scratch and relook at everything. Again, those zoning conditions do require that structure
I think there's a
still be saved.
75-foot buffer on which you cannot construct a building. There's a 50-foot undisturbed area, which brings up the question: how are you going to beautify a creek if you can't disturb the vegetation and stuff that's in that? I don't know whose ordinance it is, whose regulation it is. Assume it's state, maybe federal, but it's designated as non-disturbance.
Yes, we do allow access into undisturbed stream buffers in order to remove dead trees, dead vegetation, things like that. You can plant, so there are some plants that are appropriate to be planted on the banks of the stream as well. So it does, you're correct.
So
It
you
is
can
an
go in there and
undisturbed
clear it off
buffer.
as long as you plant the proper plants.
Yeah, we're not going to allow them to clear natural vegetation that's living. But if there are dead hazardous trees, they can go into an undisturbed stream buffer in order to remove those.
And actually, when they first had the Hudson Park approval for what they were going to do, if you'll correct me if I'm wrong, there was a reduction
Yep.
of the homes in there because of a tree that, or growth that was close to that creek there, and they actually had to reduce because of the creek or whatever, setbacks.
There was a stream buffer
That- that
variance
part
too
of
to
it.
reduce those buffers on that stream through the Hudson Park development. But there's still buffers that were maintained, it's just less than what typically would be required by code.
I have a question. Doesn't the city plan forbid anything over 3 stories? And you're talking about a 4th story. I'd always heard that it was only 3.
So on South Main Street, the downtown zoning that's allowed on those properties it's called DTMU, which is downtown mixed use, and that zoning allows up to 4 stories. Here in the core of downtown, the DTC or downtown core zoning also allows up to 4 stories. The other 2 zoning districts allowed in the downtown are DTR, which is downtown residential. That has a max of 3 stories. And then downtown live work, DTLW, that also has a maximum of 3 stories. So we have 2 zoning districts that do allow up to 4 stories.
Now, is the historic district, is that something different from a zoning district? Do we still
Yes.
have a historic district?
Yes, yeah, historic district and zoning districts are different, yes.
Yeah, okay. So a lot of structure, I don't know how far the historic district goes. I don't know if it's Canton Street to Marietta or.
So we haven't actually established, we have a downtown overlay, and that's a much larger area. I was not prepared to show a map. I wish I had that with me. That's a much larger area. That goes up to basically Main Street Walk on the north end of North Main Street, all the way down to, on the south end, to the neighborhood, Alpha Park neighborhood. And then to the west, it goes all the way, the downtown overlay goes all the way over to West Side Parkway. And then, I'm sorry, that's on the east. And on the west, it goes all the way to basically Milton Avenue and Wills Road. Those are the approximate boundaries of the downtown overlay. We used to have a downtown historic district that took the place. The downtown overlay took the place of that. So we don't actually have a historic district defined. We do have historic properties, of course, throughout the downtown.
So the zoning is what controls.
Zoning is what controls on individual properties.
Can I ask you a little bit about one more property?
Sure.
100, I guess it's 100 North Main, and then the violin house right next to that.
Mm-hmm. That's 116 North Main, I believe.
116.
Mhm.
What's the progress on that?
I don't have an update from that developer. That's Brent Beecham, was approved on 116 and 126 North Main Street. So that's the property that's just north of 100 North Main. The violin shop they did rezone that property. The zoning does condition that the violin shop be saved and designated, so they will need to go through a process with that. I've not spoken to that developer in some time, so I'd need to get an update from him on the status.
Okay. That's all I got except for one more thing. The Garden District. I know this isn't really historical in nature, but I had heard some ideas floating around about the Garden District around Canton Street and going back to Mayfield and so forth. Is there a progress or?
So we were successful in the last budget to, council did budget, set aside some budget for our department, community development, to place garden district signage in that area. We have gone out to get quotes. We have to go through a process in order to get bids or quotes for a company to prepare that signage for us. I know that we've got the quotes. I believe we selected the lowest bidder. I don't know the status of that signage, but we are moving forward with that. We needed to get a budget in order to do that signage for the garden district. But we are moving forward with that. I just need to get an update. I wasn't aware that I was going to be asked that question, so I'll get an answer for you.
It doesn't really closely relate to the historic, our job here, but I just picked up a old book that talks about the old gardens of 100 years ago, so I was just curious.
Yeah, we're working on it. There should be something soon.
Do you know what it will be attached to? What kind of signage are you talking about?
There are some specifics as it relates to the size of the signage and what it's going to look like. I don't have that information with me this afternoon.
Okay.
But yeah, and there are specific locations where those signs will be placed, and there are a number of signs. I don't recall. So we have our design review board staff that represents the design review board, Brett Schroeder. He also reviews all signage in the city, and so since Brett is the expert in signage, we've allowed him to take that and run with it. So he's working on that. I'll certainly get an update for you on that.
I know I'm not staying in my lane, Michael, I apologize.
I'm sorry?
I said I'm not staying in my lane, I apologize.
You're fine. I'll get you an update on that.
I had heard that they were going to attach it to the top of a street sign, which I thought nobody's going to look at.
I don't believe that that's what our plan is. I recall seeing some information that we sent out to sign companies in order to give us a quote or bid on that, and it was a standalone sign that I saw, that I remember seeing.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any questions? Okay. Did we approve the meeting minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Items from the staff?
I do have one item. I spoke at your request, I spoke with Director Cook, and she said I can go ahead and sign everyone on the board up to be a member of the Historic Trust, Preservation Trust. But before we sign up for any classes, I have to look at the classes and go over with her which classes would be pertinent to the city, and then, we have to look and see how much they cost, so I'll let you guys know about that.
Okay. Shaq and I were preparing a potential budget for the commission.
We don't have a budget for the commission. It all comes from community development, which has to be Kathy, and that's only, the budget is approved once a year, and the budget for this year has already been approved, but I did speak to her, and she said she'll give us the funds for everyone to become a member. So if there's something else you guys need or want, just bring it to me and I'll bring it to her. But we don't have the boards don't get a budget per se. Each board doesn't get a budget.
Well, one of them is continuing, which is the annual membership of the Georgia Trust.
Right, but I just said she gave me permission to do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I paid for it for this year, so should I?
If you have a receipt, if you can give me a receipt, then we can reimburse you for it.
Okay. And then we have something coming up the end of this month, the 24th, and it's a Zoom seminar.
Right, that's what I just said. Before you pay to attend any classes, I have to get those approved through Kathy that they're pertinent to the board and the city. So if you want to tell me what that one is that you'd like to attend, then I have to, I have to be the one that registers you guys for the classes in order for us, the city, to pay for it.
Okay, so if we tell you what we're interested in being in, you'll contact the Georgia Trust? Or do I do that?
First, I will go through Kathy and see if it's all right with
Right,
her. And
right.
then, yes, then I will sign you up for the class.
Okay, I'll get that to you.
Okay.
They're really gonna be invaluable.
And that's all I have. I don't know if Michael has anything else.
Okay, are there any other items to be brought up? And if not, then I'd like a motion to adjourn, please.
We adjourn.
Okay. Second. We are adjourned. Thank you very much for coming.